So, hey folks, this is me, Vishwas Nair. I'm the host of this panel discussion. This was supposed to be the day two of it, but trust me, because we faced a lot of technical issues and things like that. So that's why we just postponed it for a day. And later on, I just realized, okay, fine, let's just move on with something more. So this is what we are coming with, the sustainable AI for the future world, and there is always a reason for that to be talking about, because we are building an advanced level of CI/CD. We are building a huge set of architecture which can define systems availability. Like software has defined the network, software has defined the way in which we are accessing the data center, software has defined everything today. So it's all about that. Even the system architecture is built on some sort of a software. You need Kafka, you need this, you need that. What next? Connect them. So at the end of the day, we have all such kind of things, and I felt like, okay, we need a panel discussion to do something on hardware and the software. So I'm pretty glad that we were able to deliver such kind of an intuitive understanding through you to some amazing industry professionals who have seen industry, who have their own amazing startups building up. That's all it's all about, right? Just discuss and just get that insight. So I'm pretty glad that Amit Mate sir was able to make for the show, because it's all about that. We need that insight, and industry professionals are here. So I'm pretty glad that you're there on the show. Thank you so much, sir, for giving this amazing series.
Yeah, thanks, Vishwas. Thanks for inviting me. And good evening, all of the guys who are remotely looking at this show. We welcome
Yeah,
you.
yeah, that's there. Sir, what is it all about when you talk about an algorithm that is defining a problem statement? We have a problem statement and we look for an algorithm, but we make sure that we apply an algorithm and then we start working towards it. So, what does an algorithm define for problem statement? Because we are now trying to build a sustainable AI, but what is it all about when we are talking about this kind of an complex system which is yet to be understood by every person, a big black box?
Yeah, no, I think this is interesting. So, I think there are two things. No, I think one is sustainable AI and the other is algorithm, right? Yeah, we really the way I look at it, algorithms are a clever way to solve a real problem, a repetitive problem, and the repetitive problem, the nature of that is really what defines how important the algorithm is, right? I mean, uh, because if there's an algorithm which solves the problem but nobody's using it, what's the point? And then so kind of taking a step into sustainability, right? I mean, sustainability today, I think the whole industry is getting defined by sustainability. I mean, you might have noticed Apple's logo has changed to green now, or at least on the web page. So this emphasis on green and sustainability is just getting built into the fabric of every company, right? I mean, people want sustainability to be part of their DNA. I mean, that's how it is looking like. People need to be environmentally aware. They need to be, sustainable in anything and everything they do. And I think after COVID, people have realized like what is really necessary. And so yeah, I mean those are my views on sustainability and the algorithms.
Yeah, that's true. Because most of the time when I look at that problem statement, I feel like it can be solved in 5 minutes, but it takes forever. It takes forever because the way in which we are including an amount of data structure which is involved in designing the same old software, but also defines the neural network that we are talking. I think that's going to be an amazing definition, because you're now a CEO of a company and you know how much is the definition that is required in order to keep your company moving. Like there is always a new state of the art technology coming up, there is always a state of the art hardware which is always be there. So what is it all about when you talk about the deployment in an startup environment? Because to me, some of the algorithms that are coming up is a state of the art to some extent, but I feel that we are yet to improvise on a lot of things. So what is it all about when we are trying to build something through the agility of what an algorithm and the software can offer, but yet what is it all about when you're building an AI architecture in which can be used for many purposes, because we talk AGI and all, right? So what is it all about when we talk about agility of the softwares and the reliability of the software on the one side, and what is it all about when we consider the deployments on the other side, which is hardware dependent, network dependent, and everything.
That's a very broad question. So, but I think bringing it back to the sustainability part that you asked, right? I mean, in that context, so at least in the AI context, the context in which the company GMAC operates, I think sustainability. So we have to see, whether it's sustainability for AI or AI for sustainability. Right? Those are two different things. So generally, we see there's a lot of effort in all these companies in terms of what gets deployed, what gets designed, what algorithms, and they all these things work towards building more sustainability into whatever verticals they are, right? And AI can help there, right? I mean, that's one way of looking at it. And the other way is, how do you make AI itself sustainable, right? So I am actually more interested in the second one. Like what kind of thought process, what kind of algorithms, what processes, agile or not, go into making AI more sustainable.
Yeah, but like, there is always that innate definition that we have, right? Like, the AI is always defined. We are now trying to build a human brain on a burning box. That is the CPU, GPU, TPU, GPGPU, HDPUs. Oh my God. Man, what's not there in the hardware? But yet, we are yet to define how is the brain using less amount of power, but yet doing more amount of processing. So we are in the on the verge of saying that data centers has to go green, and we are also facing the problem statement that how can we generate so much power that is able to power an entire data center. So there is always that need where do you want the power of the compute, then you need to plug in to some sort of a wired system and you just need to run it. But what is it all about when you're talking about edge AI, which is more scalable? Because a lot of times when we think of some sort of an issue which we might face on any of the deep learning or the machine learning problem statement, I feel that there is a requirement of the hour. There is a new requirement that we all come up with. So what is it all about when we are thinking of a power process area definition of an AI system that we are talking today?
Yeah, that's interesting. I think so. Well, typically, I think what I do is you kind of separate the problem of AI under two main verticals, right? One is on the training side, and the other is on the inferencing side. And so,
Hmm.
so on the training side, I think what you just mentioned, right? Data centers, how do you actually get the data from where it is to the point where it's needed in an efficient manner, right? I think that's one aspect of it. But let me take a step back. I mean, really, what is sustainability? I think the standard definition of sustainability has three R's, right? Reduce,
Reuse,
reuse,
recycle.
recycle. And so we kind of put that in the context of training first, and then in the context of inferencing, right? So let's say on the training side, so the question to ask is, what can, let's say we take reuse, what can we reuse, and what is leaving a very huge environmental footprint, right? And the two things, one is, let's say what you use is data sets, right? If you can reuse data sets, or if you can reuse the infrastructures. I mean, for training today requires lakhs and lakhs of rupees worth of equipment. Why should everyone buy it? Why don't we share it? Same with data sets. Why everybody has to, why not share it, right? And I think a lot of big companies already understand that, right? Google, if you take example of Google, I mean, they've built Collab, but really what it is a tool to share those expensive infrastructure among millions and millions of developers, right? I mean, it's sustainability at its core. And same thing with the data sets that are provided already. And they will even solve the problem of transporting those humongous data sets from the storage to the compute where they will be processed to train a model, right? They actually provide even Google Cloud Storage, which is the most efficient way of accessing data on that compute. And so I think on the training front, I think a lot of these problems have been solved. I think as far as sustainability is concerned, I think this looks sustainable to the extent that the data is available, to the extent that data can be reused, to the extent that you can train this. But Um, See, you can lay everything on a platter, but you cannot make people eat it, right? And so when it comes to training, you could still be training with a very suboptimal algorithm, and whatever we gain in terms of data reuse and compute reuse could be gone, right? Like while each one of us are sharing this resource, the data, but we are using it inefficiently, it's gone. So I feel there is a need where um, on the training side, how do you efficiently find out these parameters, right? Or find out the network or train a network. I think it's still we are still using backpropagation, and we do have fancy ways of kind of getting to the answer, but in my opinion, it's largely inefficient. I mean, it's still relying on age-old methods to train the networks. I mean, people reuse, like they use pre-trained networks, but I think that's not sustainable. I mean, a pre-trained network which is inefficient in the inferencing mode doesn't make sense, right? I mean, what if everybody was using AlexNet of yesteryears, which was pre-trained? You have to come up with new, more efficient ways of inferencing, and I'll explain why I think that's more important. Because if you just do some basic back of the envelope math, right? Let's say you're training with 100,000 images, and which is basically it's almost saying that you're doing 100,000 inferences, right? But if you operate a system on the edge at 30 fps, you're actually processing it at almost 300,000 times a day,
That's true. That's
right?
true.
And so you see the difference is that inference, like sustainability in inferencing, is going to matter a whole lot. But it's going to come from sustainability on the training side, and I think some parts are there, but in terms of the algorithms. So I don't know if you've heard about Mr. Karmarkar, right? There was this scientist in AT&T Bell Labs, I think in the 70s. He's considered the father of optimization. He found out the most efficient way of searching these parameters in a multidimensional space. And so I mean, he's right now in India, in Pune, and we have scientists who understand the basics of this, right? I mean, if there were an effort to get some of those minds on working on these problems, I think we can really make an impact, at least in the sustainability on the training side, I feel.
I know every organization has their own culture, which is already built in. Like they have their own strategies, they have their own ways in which they have developed their pipelines. There's always that reason that we all give, right? Let's not break this. Let's just have it for a while. Let's just see if there is some more efficient solution. When I talk to some DevOps professional, that's the culture that they might be doing in some tiny teeny little teams. If you just search them like this, they'll not be able to do at any given point, and like the solution is huge. What I'm talking is a big petascale based servers that is going behind the compute architecture that we are just talking about. But that's a tiny teeny little team which does that culture, and everybody comes to the DevOps conferences and they start talking about it. And I feel that you don't have any rights to talk about it when you are not putting that in an entire organization culture. Because some people might say, I use ITIL, I use Scrum, I use this, I use that. But what's it at the end of the day when you don't know what's supposed to go there inside a system? So I feel that you don't have any rights to say what's going in your organization, if it's working at a scale and if it's not adopted at any given point. So what is it all about when we strategize for something which is more secure, reliable, and more profitable? Of course, money
Yeah.
matters. That's the score. Can't help it. That's the score for the world, which puts you on the pedestal of comparison, saying that, hey, this startup is making this much amount of money. But DeepMind on the other side is making huge money. On the other side, they are building a, an immense amount of architectural improvements every single day. So, what is it all about when you strategize as an organization in order to deliver something which is more profitable yet sustainable for the world? Because we have a set of rules to be architected. So, what is it all about when we talk about all these things from an organization perspective while designing such complex systems?
Yeah, no, I think it's a good question. I've actually never thought about it, but I think not in the totality, but we sometimes do worry about things like, should we go after the what they call as the bhag goals, right? Big, hairy, audacious goals, or should we do something which is sustainable in the short run, right? Because you need both, right? I mean, you as you said, I mean, money at the end of the day, it's a commercial enterprise, right? I mean, all this R&D is done so that few years down the lane, people want to pay for it, and we get the money back, and then we put it in more R&D, right? I mean, that's how most sustainable R&D organizations are built. For example, if you take the example of Qualcomm, right, which builds 5G, 6G systems, 4G systems. So before the product hits the market, there's something called a standardization, where they actually run these specs, build the technology. Right? It's all paper. There is no product. There could be simulations in the backend, and and a lot of money goes into this. Right? At that point, they don't know whether what they are innovating in terms of the spec or the patents they file, whether it's going to get converted to um, a winning standard, right? Sometimes people actually build a standard, but then the market doesn't pick it up. So all that money is wasted. Now, if you're a big company like Qualcomm, you can afford that. You can afford to take 10 such bets. And you can win on one of them, and it'll recover more than the cost on all other 10. But that's the scale of big companies. I mean, especially in the US, right? But let's say coming to India, um, it's really difficult to get that kind of money for these kind of problems, right? um, and so as a startup, you actually struggle to solve it in the right way. I mean, in all of, for all practical purposes, a startup is a hypothesis, and there is a philosophy behind how to address this. I'm not going to reveal how exactly we are doing it, but it is straddling both, right? I mean, it's the near term goals and the long term goals, and uh, somewhere you hit a sweet spot. I think that's left to
That's true.
serendipity.
That's the goal of DevOps. It's all about organization principles first, team principles next. How do you build the culture in order to keep all the two which is there above the organization principles and your team culture, everything, and how do you inculcate in your regular life? Like, it's all about that one definition that we add through that entire life cycle of development, right? It's all about that. So, like, when we talk of some things which are more commercial, like something like, okay, we have Adafruit coming up with amazing set of hardware protocols. They have their own IPs, they have their own DIY kits. There is a reason to do that, because it was all that reason that just really brought us to that purpose. Like, okay, we need this, what next? We need this, what next? That's always there for an organization. So what's the point of building a startup and an AI product? Can you add some more questions where it really gives that insight for an organization? I'm talking in terms of pipelines which are rolled out for all the different targets. Like, some people say Dockerize this, some people say Docker is not secure, and there is always that one dilemma that an organization stands on. Like, should we do this? Should we do that? Or should we use serverless, or should we not? So, how is it all about when we are architecting something for an AI? So, what will be the decision process? I always say this: DevOps. If you have an if you have a talk with a DevOps guy, don't ask what he has learned. Just ask him how was the chaos that he faced. Like, that's the definition of DevOps. You learn DevOps through the chaos.
Yeah.
I talk with a lot of director of operations of different company. They say me that, Vishwas, it's nowhere about tech today. Tech has really gone out of the hand. Like, nobody has a track of what is going to be there in the tomorrow's world. So in order to be sustainable in the tomorrow's world, there's always that decision that has to be done today. So how does an organization make that decision for the tomorrow's world in the today's scenario? Like, what will be your prerequisite for understanding what should be the decision? Because that's can be a one which can train you to be a chaotic engineer. That's what I say to some guys who say that all the fancy terms like serverless and the things like that. But what is it all about when you are making decision for all these kinds of scenarios? Like, Of course, you have tens and thousands of models. Of course, there is always a way in which you are architecting towards it. ML flow has everything today. You need not have to do everything as in version control, or there is no way that you're going to put all of these in one folders and you're going to version it like that. So how is it all about when we are making decisions for an organization's tomorrow's world? Because that's the principle that we live up for.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting question. And so, I've worked at big companies as well, where, you have the best of PhDs from Stanford, MIT, and the best of, management people from, Harvard. And you put all of these people together to build the latest and the greatest of technologies and products. And they also face the same problem, like what I was mentioning a few minutes ago, like, in terms of what Qualcomm or companies were setting the standard do. I mean, they can put the best brains in the world, and they'll say, okay, this is the decision. This is the decision to put our eggs in this basket, and we'll fight that war. But until the rubber meets the road and people pick it up, uh, it's not it's not given. I mean, nobody knows. And so living with that uncertainty, I think that is the key, right? I mean, that uncertainty is always going to be there. Now, I am not saying it's okay to make stupid mistakes, but all I'm saying is, even if you try your best, you will have that uncertainty. And it's okay, because really, you never know. I mean, some scrappy startup sitting somewhere, in Israel, could build the best wireless technology of tomorrow. And you have no idea. I mean, it could upend the whole world, or they could come up with the best algorithm. I mean, somebody sitting in Pune could be designing the best training algorithm, and you could just upend the whole training industry. I mean, it's anybody's guess. It's just so that fear is there, but I think we don't have to worry about it. I think what decisions we have made, and based on those decisions, how do we move forward based on the knowledge we have, and I think that's all you can do. But at the back of the mind, yeah, I mean, there's always a plan B. Of, I think you're mute.
Yeah. That's what I was perceiving towards. When you say that, there is always that plan of contingency. Okay, what if Docker is not supported by Kubernetes? That's what they told, right? Few days before, and now it's like GHCR is being supported.
Yeah.
Google Actions, not actually Google, GitHub Actions, GitHub Container Registry, GHCR. There's always that new version of tools which are popping up in the market, and there's always a reason for us to shift for that. Like, some people might raise a CV. Like, I always say this in the DevSecOps talks. It's like, there is always a CV which is raised for you, and it's all about you if you can patch it. If you can't patch it, sorry for that, you are
Uh,
ruining your organization. If you can patch it, good. You just enter the world of DevSecOps. People think that, okay, DevOps people only do CI/CD pipeline. It's beyond that. 6 months before, I too had that own definition, like only CI/CD is DevOps. But it's beyond it. It's all about how you leverage the developer. How do you leverage the way in which your organization is pushing in the code? They say production, production, production. It's nothing but hundreds of people pushing in the code. कुछ ना फटने वाला है. That's what production system is all about, and that's where the rollback comes in, and that's where your CI/CD is always being effective. If it doesn't work, don't push it. So just roll back, and there's always that version control. There's always the tools. I think yeah, that's what it's all about. Make some silly mistakes, but don't make sure that you are that stupid one who doesn't know. Okay, you knew this, but it happened. So it's always there. It's
yeah,
always
that's a
that
fair
thought
point. I
process.
think, yeah. I think, yeah, I mean, you got to be aware, but there's only so much you can do, and the world, everybody is in action. I mean, we don't know what somebody sitting in China in his house is designing at this point. I mean, they could be thinking about doing, the next best Google, for example, and open it to the world, right? I mean,
Yeah,
and
that's
so I think there's always that fear is there, but so that's where you kind of, when you start building something, you start building barrier to entry to those things, right? And so make it more and more difficult for just a lone wolf sitting somewhere to kind of overcome that. And so that's where I think the power of organizations come in, right? I mean, if you are united in your goal and mission, and you can find experts in those areas to kind of work together, it's a much more sustainable way for all the people involved, right? I mean,
That's true. That's true. Yeah, I think thank you so much for sharing such great insights. It's been like 20 plus minutes of talk. Yeah, 23, 25, 30. Okay. We did a lot of talk actually as one on one. Actually, we do a lot of talks, people. Don't worry about that. We talk about what's the big deal for the tomorrow's world. Sometimes I ask him, like, okay, what can we do for this? What can we do for that? There's always that way in which you can connect with the speakers. I think LinkedIn is always the best place to just jot down some amazing people and how to reach out to them, and that's the best way that you can reach out to. And I
yeah.
think Amit Mate sir is very, very, very approachable. Just get back to him, just get as many as AI insights that you can get, and I will be the most happiest human being on the planet. And thank you so much, sir, for giving such great podcast as a panel discussion. It means a lot for us.
I got a panel in the back.
Yeah. That's true, that's true. Thank you so
All right,
much, sir.
cool, man. That was fun, and yeah, keep doing your podcast. I watch. I mean, you have increased your community a lot, and wishing you all the best. So
Yeah.
yeah, you're going to be the most prolific podcaster in the world soon. I want to see your name in Guinness Book.
Let's see. Let's see. I've done 100 plus in a year, but like, let's see if God gives me much more energy. I'm just going to do a lot of them. Perfect.
All
We'll
right,
end the broadcast, folks. Bye.
bye.